all guests. I am so privileged and honored to be standing here amongst such a talented group of people. And let me just say, it's kind of intimidating as well, but nevertheless, I am very honored to be chosen as one of your speakers for today. I did have a short video for you guys, so if we could just play that.
I don't have an identity. I don't know how I'll get education. I don't know how I'll be able to access free healthcare. I don't know how I'll be able to have protection from the government. How can I live without this? How many children will have to be affected just like me? If we're termed the future of the country, why are we deprived of this? We are citizens of this country, aren't we? Who will ensure our rights?
The Indonesian President Joko Widodo, once said that all citizens should have the same opportunities without exception. Did have a presentation for you, but it's not on, so I'm just going to continue. I visited shanties along my way of being a part of a social activist, and one of the shanties I visited was the Bulkan Shanty. Now, the Bulkan Shanty is located near a busy toll road in my hometown, Jakarta, Indonesia. And it is the home of many. The first time I visited the Bulkan Shanty, I was just 16. I remember the smell of rotted waste, burning plastic, and car fumes, and seeing shoeless children walking around, completely unaware of their surroundings, just playing with their friends. Majority of those who live in the shanties work as garbage scavengers, earning less than $1.40 per day. Now, next. Next. Well, that was the Bulkan Shanty. So this is Pendi. He's only 7 years old, and he lives with his parents and 2 brothers in the Bulkan, in a single-room house that is actually the father made out of materials that they found from the waste. His mother, Ibu Lucy, works for hours and hours on end. I remember a conversation that I had with Ibu Lucy of her telling me how she felt about the life that she gave her kids, how she wished she could provide her kids with an education and more opportunities than she was given. But those were just wishes and prayers. His mother and Pendi and the brothers are amongst the many Indonesians who don't have a birth certificate, a basic necessity and a way to provide evidence of citizenship. Ibu Lucy and her children are a part of the estimated 75 million Indonesians who don't have birth certificates. Throughout my time being involved with organizations which focuses on children education and well-being, I realized how critical birth certificates were to a child's life. Next. The Ministry of Home Affairs states that 32 million out of the 85 million children in Indonesia don't have birth certificates, while UNICEF states that there are over 230 million with the same case. Next. A birth registration is the first step of ensuring a child's rights. When a child is registered, you're not only giving evidence of its identity, but of its existence. It provides evidence of nationality, where the child was born, place of birth, basically, parents, and age. Registration also entitles a child to her rights, or his or her rights, and responsibilities throughout their life, in which the state that they were born in. Without a birth certificate, a child will experience difficulties in receiving health care, rights to legal protection, future employment, documentation, and education. Next. maybe go next. Now, a birth registration was first acknowledged as a human right in 1948 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where in Article 15 it states that everyone has a right for a nationality. In fact, in 1966, the UN International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR, ensured that birth registration became a legally binding obligation for all states. And in the Indonesian constitution itself, it states in Chapter 10A, Article 28A, that every person shall have the right to live and to defend his or her life and existence. But how are these children supposed to defend their life and existence without any legal proof of their? Next. So how does birth registration link with human security? Well, as most of us know, human security refers to the security of people and communities rather than the states. One way the government does, this is through birth registration. When kids don't have a birth certificate, they're at greater risk of being exploited. One way is child trafficking. Proof of age is critical in successfully prosecuting perpetrators of crimes against children, such as child trafficking. According to the UN, a child has been trafficked if he or she has been moved within a country or across borders, whether force or by not, by the purpose of being exploited. Now, when trafficked between countries, the lack of identification means that the process of reparation may be prolonged. Consider a case from a few years ago. Wilfrida Sok, an Indonesian who had been trafficked to work as a housemaid, had faced the death penalty in Malaysia for killing a man who had trafficked her into domestic servitude and repeatedly abused her. Her legal defense claimed that she had been a minor at the time of the man's death, and this would have kept her away from penalties placed against her. But her passport had actually been falsified by the traffickers. So the legal defense sought out one of the most important documents considered providing highest proof of legal identity as an Indonesian citizen, her birth certificate. But just like the other 32 million Indonesians out there, she don't have one. But she got lucky. Her legal defense managed to find a christening letter that provided age and proof of her age to the judges. So it was a legal instrument. It was key into convincing the governments to acquit her. Now, this case demonstrates the critical importance of legal recognition and the vulnerability of those without it. The Indonesian Child Protection Commission, known by its initials KPAI, estimates that 100,000 Indonesian children and women are being trafficked each year in Indonesia, and that 30% of sex workers are below the age of 18. Meanwhile, data from the Ministry of Social Affairs states that in 2016, there were over 56,000 underage children who are working as sex workers. In addition to this, boys and girls from ages 15 to 18 years old are being trafficked to Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Singapore for sexual purposes. Majority of these children who are involved in child trafficking do not have birth certificates. Now, this issue is also apparent in the Philippines, where around 50% of child abuse cases, mostly in the area of child abuse, child labor, and protection, do not succeed in courts due to the failure of concerned parties to show birth certificates during the investigation phase. Trafficking is sometimes linked to the desire to someone wanting to migrate. Those individuals who don't have proper legal documentation but want to migrate for work and other reasons are more likely to fall into the hands of traffickers. Without papers, individuals become dependent on the illicit intermediaries to facilitate their migration, and therefore vulnerability to trafficking increases. Okay, well, I guess my time is up, but I did have more for you. So if you're welcome to ask me more questions about this issue after this talk is up. So thank you.